I think we have a very, very failed judicial system, and that's throughout the entire country. I think that
Hmm.
our prison systems are broken and and in very, very poor conditions. I mean, it's prison, right? So somebody might hear that and say, well, how is a prison supposed to be if it's not in a poor condition? I'm sorry, you know, you 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 can't put people in prison or jail in inhumane conditions. So Rachel called me on Sunday, as I think I mentioned before we started the interview, or maybe during the interview. Forgive me for not remembering. She's in a prison right now where there is no hot water. It's intermittent, and um, and they're not getting their commissary on time, if at all, and they're in lockdown on a regular basis. And there's women in there who have cancer and can't get their cancer treatment. The heat is intermittent. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. Okay. I could go back to the DC jail when Tim was in jail. Tim was sick in there. He had a very bad ear infection. He got no medical treatment. There was another gentleman in jail. His name is Jeffrey McKelliff. He had an incredible abscess on his tooth. If you've ever had an abscess on your tooth, I mean, I have. It's incredibly painful. And you get relief by going to the dentist and getting an antibiotic or getting a shot in the abscess or whatever. This poor guy had to get like a paper clip, and some of the guys had to help him, and they had to set it on fire to try to sanitize the paper clip, and with a lighter, and he had to burst the abscess on his on
Oh,
his own. So I mean, when the guys were in the DC jail, there was one nail clipper that was passed around between 54 people. There were days where they were eating bread with mustard packets, and you know and maybe an apple if they were lucky. That is, it's not okay. It's not okay. So that is going on in the country as it is throughout our prisons and
hmm.
our jails, because there is a difference between the jails and the prisons. Um, but these people specifically, they were targeted. They were targeted, and they were treated like political prisoners. There's no question about it.
Tell us about some of the impacts on the families. There's people, like you said, still in jail, about 300 people who are still in jail. Your organization has been helping families um, try to figure things out while the supporter of the family is locked away. Tell us about some of the impacts.
Kim, it's so heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking. I had two families here at my home just this past week, who don't live far from me, and they were here with their kids. It's Christmas, one of them, it was their birthday. We had a birthday party. Um, I've gotten very close to a ton of these families, and I've watched these kids. And what I learned this week watching this one family, the little boy was, 7 going on 8 when his dad went to jail. And his dad just got out of jail. His dad was in jail for over 3 years. So now the little boy just turned 11, and it's an adjustment, right? Like, my father hasn't been here. I don't have to listen to you. I only listen to mom, like, and then mom is caught up in it. That's just a small part of it. You got marriages that are breaking up. You have husbands that are going to get released from prison, whether it's a pardon, whether it's some kind of commutation, whether there's whatever clemency it's going to be, that can't go home to their wife and children because the wife doesn't want them to come home. These men and women have been separated for 4 years now, and there is serious damage and fallout. These women out here have had to work 1, 2, 3 jobs to stay in their home. Some women couldn't stay in their home, and they had to leave the only home that they know. Children have had to change schools. Children have no health insurance now. We've paid for oral surgery for some of these kids. We've paid for Cobra for some of these families. We've paid for help with braces, kids that already had braces on that lost their insurance and had to go and get the braces off, and the mom didn't have money. We've paid for rent, we've paid for mortgage, electric bills. We ask people to send in gift cards at Christmas time so we can give them to the families, the moms, try to keep normalcy for them. They can go do their own shopping rather than us collect toys and send them. We have to help these women and we have been, to keep their head above water. Um,
Mhm.
you know, camp. Some of these kids, we had to call churches, we had to call different people, and we got, angel donors, for moms who had to work, and kids had to, be babysat, and they would go to camp. I mean, I, I struggled as a kid, and I went through some horrific things that I shouldn't have had to, and so is Tim. And so we kind of understand, what it's like to struggle as a child. And so Tim and I work, hard. I mean, he can't do much right now, considering he's still on probation, and that's a whole nother thing, Kim. But a lot of these kids, they don't understand. And we as the adults, we have to show up and we have to be there for them, and remind them that their dads are good people. As a matter of fact, I've had a few fundraisers where President Trump has attended, and he's seen these kids and he's talked to these kids and he's seen the wives and he's met with them. And I've listened to President Trump, and he tells these kids that they're good boys and girls, and that their dads and their moms are good people, and that they're going to have a good life, and that he's going to continue fighting for them and he's going to help them. And he tells them to go to school and promise me you're going to get good grades and you're going to do good in school. I mean, that it's been a humanitarian crisis on so many levels for 4 years now for these families, and it's this is never going to be forgotten. Yes, these men are going to come home, some families are going to be intact again, children are going to see their dads, their moms, but the scars run deep, Kim, and it's very
Yeah.
sad.
Are most of the people charged with federal offenses, or any of them local?
um, Everybody's charged federally, everybody,
Okay.
and
Okay.
there are some people that are charged with state charges as well. Not a lot, just a few.
Okay, because when Trump takes office again, he obviously would have the power to pardon, or, clemency or commutations. But he can only do that for federal offenses,
Right.
cannot do that for state crimes. So, do you have, I mean, I know that Trump has spoken, so he's aware of your organization. He obviously is aware of these people that are still sitting in jail. Um, what is your plan? Like, have you already produced a list? Have you already been talking to the Trump campaign or the Trump team, the transition team, of, the names of people of who needs to be, like, what are you guys seeking, and what steps have you taken towards helping some of these people?
Um, I trust President Trump to tell us what his intentions are and what he's going to do. He's been dropping little hints here and there, and we just have to sit back and wait for him to continue to
Okay.
do that.
But I mean, is there a list that you have? Because you said some of the people, you're not like recommending everybody get out of jail for what happened on January 6th. Some people rightfully committed a crime, and they're now serving time for that crime. So do you have a list that you've presented to the Trump transition team to say, these are the people that are still in jail who should not be in jail? This is why they should not be in jail. Um, you know, a- have you done anything like that at this point? Because it seems like that would be the next step in at least dealing when you're talking about the 300 people who are still currently in jail.
I think for President Trump, the first order of business is going to be the people that are sitting in jail.
Yeah. Okay.
We don't give recommendations. We're not lawyers. We can't give recommendations. Um, you know, and so I think the first order of business will be the people that are in jail.
Yeah. And then what would you like to see for the people who are already out, like your nephew? What are you looking for the president to do?
Well, I think that pardons basically say, we forgive you for the crime you committed. So you're admitting that you're guilty. And Tim went to trial, and he went to a jury trial because he wasn't guilty, and he wasn't going to admit to something that he didn't do. And so a jury said, well, we don't believe you, and we're going to find you guilty anyway. But that doesn't mean that Tim admits his guilt.
Right.
And that's the case for a lot of people. So we have to figure out what that looks like, because a pardon is basically going to say, okay, we're giving you instant relief, but you're admitting your guilt. And
Hmm,
I know my nephew will he won't do that. He will not do that. He's not going to
I
admit
see.
to something he didn't do. So we have to look at what kind of exoneration plans could be, or the slate has to be wiped clean, especially for people who only have misdemeanor charges.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm glad that you clarified that because just the other day I was actually wondering why somebody would reject a pardon. I was looking at presidential pardons, of course, with Biden doing all these pardons, and it said that yeah, the person themselves, so the president can't just unilaterally issue a pardon because the person themselves also has to accept the pardon. So it's not something like the president can just do to you and it's just done. You have to actually. And then I thought, well, why would anybody reject that? But now I see, and now I understand because if it is
Yeah.
requiring you to admit guilt for something, and I guess that's kind of one of the debates people are having right now about, there's a conversation for Biden to issue all these pardons for people that they believe might need political,
Mhm.
they might end up politically persecuted, and so they're wanting to have protection, like Bill Clinton saying maybe Hillary should get a pardon, and they're talking about Adam Schiff and Liz Cheney, and all these people that served on the January 6th committees and whatnot. Um, but yeah, I guess if they have to admit guilt, then it's like, well, what? But if you weren't guilty of something, for example, then that puts you in kind of a bind. It's like, what's better? Is it better to just admit guilt and take the pardon, or? But I guess for your nephew, he's already out, right? So I mean, it's like, what would the pardon do for him?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So, I mean, he's not a convicted felon anymore. So he doesn't have a felony conviction. So, we can go get a lawyer and get his record expunged. But I think that we have to wait and see what President Trump will be announcing here in the next few weeks,
Yeah.
and what this is going to look like, because he's aware of that. He knows. And I think that we have to think about that, right? Because you go to a you go to a job, and if you're asked, are you a convicted felon, you have to say yes. Now, I do think that a pardon might negate that. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I know that there's teams of lawyers that are really exploring everything that they can. So,
Yeah.
but I think the best thing we can do is to sit back and wait for President Trump to talk about what his plans are. And I think that we will be hearing that soon.
Well, hopefully it's not at the end of his term because that's usually when they do it, right? It's 4 years, the end of the
Oh, no,
term.
no,
I mean, that would be, yeah, that would be a long time for people. Um,
it won't
all
be.
right. So
That I can say confidently.
tell us about your organization again and what you're doing right now to help families and people, how people can help.
So, Patriot Freedom Project, we have helped with criminal charges. We've paid for a lot of legal fees for hundreds of these defendants. And we've helped some of the lawyers who have filed cert petitions to the Supreme Court. And there are a lot of defendants who are being sued by the federal government. And I don't think that President Trump can pardon that. And so these people have to fight that. Like, I go back to Julian Cater, for example. So that's just one lawsuit. And that's a
Hmm.
lawsuit that Julian is on with his co defendant and the president. And they're being sued by the girlfriend of Officer Sicknick. And she is seeking like $10 million from each, defendant. So, these people have to get lawyers for these cases. And so we want to help where we can in terms of those cases. So we're raising money for that. And there has to be, I think, some civil action, against our DOJ, and against the media, and, people that, massacred a lot of these people, put their private personal thing, released content from people's phones and computers. And so, so we're working on that as well. And,
Hmm.
just because somebody comes home from prison, it doesn't mean that their financial need, for the family ends. There's still a need. There's still, these men have to come home and get, acclimated to being out here again. And it's going to take a minute for them to do that and go find a job. And um, it's just, there's so much, there's just so much. And again, like there's a lot of women that have had to move from the house that they were in with their husband. Maybe they're in a smaller apartment. They're going to have to, move again. Um, so the financial need continues, and that will be probably for the foreseeable future. So, there's going to be a need for mental health. Lots of people need help with mental health. When lots of these men that were in the DC jail, they were in solitary confinement. We didn't even talk about that, Kim. But Tim, for example, spent over a year in solitary confinement. He spent many months sitting in a jail cell by himself for 23 hours a day. He
What was
couldn't
the
get a
reason for
Bible.
that? Yeah, what was the reason for that?
COVID,
Why would they do that?
COVID,
Oh, that's what they were claiming.
COVID.
Oh, wow.
Yes, they
Okay.
used COVID.
Jeez.
Um, and so they couldn't get religious services. They could not get grooming services. I mean, Tim was in the army. This is a man who walked around with very short hair, clean shaven. I was horrified when I saw him the first time. He looked like a hillbilly with his long hair and his
Yeah.
beard.
Ugh. I
So
mean, I couldn't imagine being locked down in lockdown, right? You're already in lockdown, you're in jail, and then the
yeah,
whole world does a lockdown. I mean, ugh, that would be the most miserable
yeah,
place to be.
yeah. Tim drew this incredible. Tim's a really, really, really good artist. I mean, unbelievable. And he drew this incredible, from ceiling to floor in his cell of Jesus. And that's how he did his church. And he finally got a Bible, and that's how he did his Bible readings in his church. And they wouldn't let him have it. They made him paint over the Jesus on the wall.
Mm,
I mean, that's how sick this is. I mean, there's been no
mhm.
First Amendment, denied every human right you could think of. And heads need to roll in
Yeah.
25. Heads need to roll.
So where can people, are you guys accepting donations? Is that what you're still collecting
Yes,
donations in order to help people? Okay.
yes,
Where can
yes.
people go?
So you can go to patriotfreedomproject.com. That's our main website. You can donate there. You can see our, year-long wish list where we're always taking in school supplies and help for Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas and things like that for the kids. And you can donate through our website. You can also visit dueprocessdenied.org, and you can see our three-part docu-series, and you can hear directly from the families and some of the kids themselves, and you can see where you can purchase our book, Due Process Denied, and you can read about what we've done and how we've helped. You can read about Tim, and you can hear from some of the families themselves who've written passages for the book. And stay tuned for more to come, and Tim's story to be out here soon. And support these families. That's the main thing. These children need our
Mm.
help. These children need our help so much.
Yeah. All right. So I do have those links down below to both Patriot Freedom Project and also Due Process Denied, where people can donate, people can watch the docuseries, buy the book, all of that, which will help these people that are still sitting in jail or the people that are trying to rebuild their lives. Cynthia, thank you so much for being here and telling us, giving us more insight into what has happened to these people, the persecution that they've dealt with, and the unfairness, and even just the overall unfairness in our prison system and in the justice system in general. It's yeah, people it doesn't ever change because there's just not enough sympathy, right? People think, well, then you just shouldn't have done the crime, right? That's just kind of the
Yeah,
attitude I think a lot of people
yeah,
have. And then they forget that there's a lot of people who didn't do the crimes and yet they're sitting in jails. And what if that was you? What if you're the one you didn't commit a crime, but you get accused falsely? And even if especially if it's something really egregious like murder, they will make you sit in that jail and wait for your trial. And yet there you are, you didn't do it, but we kind of act like, nope, the minute you're charged, that's it, you're guilty, you did it without even having the trial itself. And people are treated that way. I mean, it's just terrible. But But particularly, I mean, there's definitely been some major political persecution that has gone on against Trump himself and also the people who support him, from even just people that he surrounded himself with in his first term who dealt with, like you mentioned, Steve Bannon going to jail. And, there's just been so much political persecution, and now even to the supporters, the people who were there on January 6th. Cynthia, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Do have those links down below. And yeah, let's see what happens next year. I guess early next year. Let's see what happens. Thank you so much for watching. This was just a clip from the longer, larger show that you can catch Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. That'll route you to the platform where you need to be in order to get the full uncensored show every Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Click on that link, watch the full interview. See you there.